Welcome to the No Ordinary Love podcast, where we discuss what it means to be in a healthy relationship with mutual love and respect. I'm your host, Rosalind Ona, and after my divorce, I've been on a quest to learn about what it means to find healthy love, which I've come to realize is unfortunately the exception. Join me on the quest for what it means to have no ordinary love. It's a new year, a new chance for love. In fact, I found out this Saturday on the dating apps, it's the day where people join dating apps the most on the 7th. So if you're out there looking for love, wishing you all the best. I'm really excited today to have Folashade Butler as our kind of like my guest co-host. She just got back. I've been watching her IG. She's been in Nigeria. I'm so jealous, especially because she went to the Asake concert and I'm a huge fan. I can't wait to see him here in the US whenever he tours. You'll have to tell me all about that and how that was. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest co-host for today, Folashade Butler. Fola, please tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about that Asake concert before we get started.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Happy New Year to you. My name is Folashade Butler. I am a wife and mother of 5. I cannot believe every time I say that, it's just a shock to me. But I have 5 beautiful children. I'm a relationship coach certified. I have been a premarital counselor with my church for the last, I would say about 12 years. It is work that is, let me not even call it work. It's more ministry for me, and I enjoy working with individuals and couples to identify those areas of their life concerning love that they want to improve on and that they want to do better in. It is a journey for everybody. It is not a destination. It is definitely a journey. And even myself, as a certified relationship coach, as a relationship enthusiast, as a marriage proponent, I too have my own journey and my own work that I am currently going through and that my husband and I are going through together. But I am always happy to talk about love, talk about relationships, talk about marriage, and share perspectives that are similar or different from what other people have to say.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm amazed at just watching you from afar because I think you had one child when I first met you, and then now you have 5. I don't even know how you keep it all together, and you're always glowing.
Well, I appreciate it.
No
That is
idea.
definitely the grace of God in my life. It ain't got nothing to do with me.
Amen. Amen. We say more prayers and more prayers. So that are you planning on having any more kids?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, we are good. We're good
Your
at 5.
children need partners. So like one's missing a partner.
You know what's funny? I used to say that I did not want an odd number of kids. I didn't want a middle child. I am a middle child, and I always said I wanted, the balance in an even number. But I'm not like your typical middle child, and I don't think my true middle child, will be the typical middle child either. So we are good at 5. There is no more coming out of this body. We are not having any more kids.
Okay, I hear you. 5 is definitely plenty.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit, just give us a little teaser about kind of how you found your version of No Ordinary Love? Just a little bit about how you met your partner and, and how your love has been so far, how you would describe it.
I can do that. So we met in college. I was in a summer program the summer before my freshman year. He, I believe, at that point had finished his sophomore year. We were just, friends. I would say same circles, but really not same circles. We just kind of met because he actually at the time had a girlfriend who came to the university for him, I believe. I was not interested. It was not like that. It just happened to transform over the years. Brandon used to have long hair. And so, me being an African girl, he assumed that I knew how to cornrow hair, which he assumed correctly because I did. And so, in braiding his hair, we got close. Over the years, we formed a friendship that later turned into a romantic relationship. And we have now been married for it'll be 14 years this year that we've been married. Like I said, we have 5 kids. Our oldest is 9, turning 10 this year, and our youngest is 1, turning 2 this year. And it's been a journey, like I said earlier. It's been a journey, it's been incredible. There are lots of ups, lots of downs, but what we have learned is that for us, it takes a great deal of commitment and putting God first and being obedient to his word, which is not always easy, to be quite honest. So it has taken a lot of prayers, it has taken a lot of forgiveness, it has taken a lot of patience to get to this point. And, for us, it's our prayer that we can continue to build this friendship, which is at the core and at the foundation of what we have. And we hope that we can continue to, grow old together and continue to build this life together.
Um, what would you say to Folashade 14 years ago on her wedding day that you know now that that version of you did not know?
Very good question. Because at that point, I had already been the go to friend that people would come to for relationship advice. And to be honest, at that point, I hadn't had very much experience in relationships. I just had I just always had an inkling. I just always had this air about me, based on the upbringing that my parents had given me. And so if I were to go back 14 years ago, October 9th, 2010, I would tell myself to buckle up for this ride because it is not what the fairy tales tell you. It is not what you see on social media. It is gritty. It is mad sometimes. It is terrifying sometimes. It's shocking, but it's beautiful, And if you're with a person that is truly committed to you and truly committed to growing, then you're in good shape. And I think that's one of the things that people forget. When you get into a relationship and you grow over time, you cannot and should not be the same person.
Mm-hmm.
The person I was on my wedding day is certainly not the person that I am today. And that's to be expected. I have grown in age, I've grown in weight, I've grown in kids.
In
So
wisdom.
it's just in wisdom as well, yes. So it is unreasonable and not not very not it doesn't have a lot of foresight if you think that you're going to be the same exact person or that you're marrying a
Mm-hmm.
person that's going to be the exact same.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think the biggest thing is this notion that you want one will not you don't want anyone who will change you, which I think is just a fallacy because you will change
Mm-hmm.
you
That's right.
regardless of the influence of your partner changing you over time in your relationship. And you you want to be growing. The last thing you
Yeah,
want is to be stagnant because then your relationship becomes stale
exactly.
and you become bored, frankly. So I think definitely growth is a key part of any relationship, and that's definitely something that I learned through my divorce. I realized that I need a partner that I'm very committed to growth. I love love. I love reading about love, trying to figure out how I have the kind of authentic relationship that I want to have. And without that, it's not possible for me to be in a relationship with someone else. So I definitely agree. I'm so intrigued. I'm definitely like, I have this secret fantasy that you and Brandon will come on so that we can like really, really delve in. I'm just going to put it out there. God answers prayers. So, what does the world get to experience as a result of Brandon and Folashade's marriage?
Oh wow, that's a great question. What does the world get to experience? I don't know what the world gets to experience. We're just living our life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I how do I say this? Someone once told me that I hit the jackpot with Brandon. To which I was like, "What you mean, girl?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, we're a lot of us are out here and we're really trying to, find our own path, and this woman was not married. Trying to find our own path, and it's just slim pickings. And I said, okay, yes, I can understand that. I've heard that in a variety of forms. But what I wanted her and what I want everybody to know is a lot of times you see these relationships online, you see them on social media, and people begin to idolize. But you never know what the inner workings of anybody's relationship looks like. I myself, I've been guilty of this. I have looked at, not necessarily like, individuals that I know, but, celebrities, specifically Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. They are not necessarily my couple goals, but they are a couple that I've seen in the media, and I just enjoy watching their dynamic. And I think people do the same thing with Brandon and I. People enjoy watching our dynamic. People enjoy seeing us love on each other. People enjoy us having kids and putting them on social. And I am so grateful for that positive reaction and encouragement. But we truly are living our day to day. We have our woes, we have our challenges, we have our fights. And what I want the world to experience through our marriage is truly the hand of God. I want people to know that despite what you might see on the reels on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever, the real of what our life looks like is purely by the grace of God. And it's purely because of the work that we are trying to put in. And again, it is not always easy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's what we committed to do. We decided very long ago that divorce was not something that we wanted to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be lying if I said it never came up
Mm-hmm.
in our dealings and our conversations. Not, never in a significant way, but, out
Mm-hmm.
of anger sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
we might throw out that word or say we wish that we, could go down that path. But then we're brought right back to reality that this is, what we have is bigger than us, and we're trying to model for ourselves and for our children what, a healthy and committed marriage looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we hope we're putting out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want people to think that it's all roses and rainbows all the
Mm-hmm.
time. We want it to be real, we want it to be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And we want people to know that it takes a lot of work, and sometimes the harder option is to stay in the marriage and work it out.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing our best.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of one final question before we shift gears and go into kind of what were some of the topics around the idea of love last year. You've mentioned the word commitment several times. I think it was one of the very first words that you used. What does that commitment look like day to day? And I there was another idea that you kind of spoke about around commitment, that you bring yourself back to the commitment that you made. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, and what does it look like when you have used the divorce word, and you have to bring yourself back to the greater commitment that you have for your relationship.
Yeah. I like the word commitment because, well, two things. First, let me start with the latter part of your question, which is using the word divorce. Just to be clear, we have not done it often.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was
Mm-hmm.
one time at the beginning when we first got married, and then we said, okay, never
Mm-hmm.
gonna do it. And then there's one more time recently
Mm-hmm.
where things got really, really, really tough,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like I wish we
Mm-hmm.
were not at this point where we were having these full blown arguments. Maybe divorce might be an option. And so we came back to our senses, and that was not the option, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And we did not go down that path. So it hasn't been used frequently. It has been used in the course of our, being together. But once again, commitment is where we circle back and where we make the amends and we realize that that's what we want to do. And so the reason why I like the word commitment is because I think there is a distinct difference in the work people put in. And this is not a dig at anybody who chooses to go down the divorce route, because some people just need to go down that route and that is the best option for them. But for us, the word commitment means something, means a certain kind of work and a certain kind of energy in comparison to the word interested. So I think a lot of people are interested in marriage. They are interested in love. They are interested in understanding how it works. Then there are people who are actually going to be committed to it and who know that it will take work, who know that it will take sacrifice, who know that there will not always be happy times that will, that will shine through. There might be some horrible times that you need to work through. And I think the biggest difference between those two is what keeps us committed. Like I said, many, many years ago, when we first started dating, when we first started courting, when we went through our premarital counseling, we decided that divorce was not going to be an option for us and that we will do whatever it takes to stay committed to each other and work through whatever differences we might be facing, which is a lot easier to say when you don't have challenges. And then when the challenges hit, you're just like, whoa, maybe I spoke too soon and maybe I really do want to go down this path. But it was the commitment to ourselves. And we think about, and the way I think about it is, people often like to say that marriage is just a piece of paper, it's a contract. It's not, it's a covenant. And the covenant is what keeps us committed. And the covenant is between myself, my husband, and God. We decided under God that this was something that we were going to do. We decided under God that if we kept him at the center, we will do our damnedest to make sure that we stay committed to each other and do whatever we can. Do we fail at times? Obviously, of course, we're humans. But because we wanted to be committed to this covenant that we made with God, we put in the work, we put in the energy, we go through the motions. We are. I am a big proponent of therapy, so we do that as well, just to make sure that we're keeping the wheels on our marriage, because it really is not something that you can go at it alone. You have to have the commitment of your partner. You have to have the foundation of Christ, and then I believe you also have to add in that therapy component.
I'm 100% on therapy. So like you're speaking to the choir here for sure. And I agree with you. I think what I love about what you said is like you've been so realistic about what marriage is about, and the fact that there are times that you will be at your wits end and you might mention like, oh, maybe we can go down this divorce path. But I think that is the reality of marriage, and these are the kind of conversations I want to have about what it's really like, so that when people do step into it as a covenant, when people do go down being married, they have at least a better idea than what I had when I was getting married, about what it meant to be committed and how you should find a partner that is equally committed to the commitment. You literally have to be committed to the commitment that you made, because some days you're not even going to be like full in loving your
Mm-hmm.
partner to be committed to them. So
Yeah.
I definitely hear you, and it sounded very realistic to me. It didn't sound like you were saying, "Oh, divorce is just an option that you
Mm-hmm.
put on the table at all." So I just wanted to clear that up. But there's so much more we could talk about. Maybe Brandon will join us one day. But for now, let's go to what is one of both of our favorite topics. Let's talk about like 2023, which was, I think, such a fascinating year in relationships. So
Mm-hmm.
many things happened. We've kind of picked a few topics here. So we'll go through them and see what our thoughts are, where our thoughts converge and where they diverge, maybe on these
Okay.
things. Um, we'll start with one that was kind of recent towards the end of the year, but I think I'll give a background on the topic, but instead of talking directly to the kind of celebrities because they're more public topics, it's just more about the idea of it and how it would relate to a marriage for anyone or a relationship for anyone. So, starting off with sharing your relationship challenges on social media, I think that's very common. Cardi B did it recently. I think
Mm-hmm.
she tends to share quite a bit about her relationship on social media, the ups and the downs, about what's happening in her relationship. She leaves cryptic messages on social. She goes, I mean, they're together, which I think is really normal in certain ways. I mean, you're liking your partner at one point, you may not be liking them at another point. Relationships wax and wane. But
Yeah.
is this something we really want to like kind of put out there on social media? Like, is there value to being this transparent about your
Mm.
relationship? I'll let you go first with what your
Yeah.
thoughts are.
So here's where I stand on that. Obviously, people are going to do whatever they want. Whatever floats their boat, go for it. As for me in my house,
For me and mine.
as for me in my house, there is a certain level of privacy that I think this generation does not value. And this is not to say that Cardi B or anybody else who is doing this for attention.
Mhm.
But for me, you have to use wisdom in what you allow people to see when it comes to the inner workings of your relationship. There are people in the world who probably watch Cardi B and watch her divulge whatever details about her relationship, the good, bad, and ugly. And there are people who are praying against her relationship. There are people who are watching it for entertainment purposes. There are people who genuinely don't want to see her do well or see her husband do well. There are people who just don't understand the dynamics of marriage and what it takes, and so they might encourage her in the wrong way. People are easily influenced. And so for me, I don't care to share widely any challenges that I'm having in my marriage. I seek wise counsel only. And wise counsel for me is private. I don't need an audience. I don't need people who are going to give an opinion about things that they don't necessarily know about. And so for me, it's a hard pass. I don't think sharing those intimate details and challenges of your relationship is useful unless you are seeking wise counsel from somebody, and that typically isn't going to be done via social media.
Mm-hmm. What about your friends? I know you said wise counsel, but
Mhm.
kind of what does wise counsel mean?
Yeah.
And your friends, your sisters, your aunts, are those people that you would share with? Is that what you mean?
So again, very good question. So all my friends are never going to know the full details of my marriage. It will never happen. And this is not because I don't think that they're wise. It's just there's certain people that I know. You have to know who is in your life, who's in your circle of friends. There are certain people I know that can handle a marital challenge, married or not. I know that there's certain people that can handle it. There's certain some ones of my friends that are not going to be able to handle it. There are certain friends that if I said, "Oh my God, Brandon really messed up. He did X, Y, and Z," they'd be like, "Girl, divorce his ass, divorce him." No, no, no. That's not the kind of energy that I need. I need people that are going to help me think through what it is I need to do and how I need to approach certain situations concerning my marriage. For me, my wise counsel is my sister, my big sister. My wise counsel at times is my younger sister. My wise counsel are people that I know who stand in the gap for me, who pray for me when I can't pray for myself because it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's not, and I can count on one hand who
Mm-hmm.
those people are, and it's not a total of 5 fingers, it
Mm-hmm.
might be 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
so you have to know, even within your friend circle, who can handle what milestone, who can handle what challenge, who can handle whatever problem. Not everybody is built to do everything in your life.
100% agree. I think we're definitely similar on this one. I would share the story I would share is like with the decision to get a divorce for me, I only shared the decision with my therapist. And the interesting thing she did, which I so appreciate till this day, is that she said, this is your decision at the end of the day. It's between you and God. The only person, she gave me tools for decision making, but she's
Mm-hmm.
like, whatever decision you make at the end of the day, and this was a faith based therapist, whatever decision you make at the day, I will stand with you, but I encourage you to speak with your pastor, priest, and then pray about it, and then think logically about it as well. What does this logically mean for me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's from that realm that I made the decision. Nobody in my family knew that I had made this decision until after I had done all that and I was
Mm-hmm.
firm for myself in that decision making before I shared it with them, and then they chose to be supportive, which is very fascinating to me, because certain people in my life felt that it was my family that was egging me on to do this, when
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was so far from the truth. But I also have seen and learned from my mistakes of sharing things with people. Like you said, not everyone has the capability.
Yeah.
Not everyone is built for it. Some people are built for, like, okay, what are we doing? We fighting? Let's fight.
And
You know?
you need those people in your life.
Yes. You need the discernment to know which decision you're going to, which subject matter you're going to go to them to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just something very interesting that I learned along the way. And I actually got really good advice during my traditional marriage at the time. Someone said he had been married for many years. He goes, the challenge is don't take anything in your marriage to a third party, because you know you may forget and forgive your husband,
Yep.
but this third party, will never forget, and I'll never see each partner the same way that
Mm-hmm.
I see them today. And
Yep.
that really stuck with me, until
Yeah.
other things happened.
Right. And
Yeah.
and that's the advice that I'd received from my pastor. Just in our
Mhm.
premarital course, I remember specifically, and I had already known this because my parents are wonderful, and they've done a good job with my sisters and I, in
Mhm.
helping us to understand how we should maneuver when it comes to marriage and being
Mhm.
private about the things that you need to be private about and sharing what you need to share. But I remember the advice of my parents and the advice of my pastor, and they said, when it comes to the challenges that you face in your marriage, you have to be careful about who you share it with, for sure, but certainly be very careful about sharing it with your family members, especially your parents, because your parents will not forget. You're their child.
Mhm.
Your sisters, your brothers, they won't forget. You're their sibling. And the moment you decide to move on, they're still going to harbor those memories of whatever issue you shared with them. And they will never look at your partner the same. And so, wherever possible, I know I mentioned wise counsel, and that still rings true, but wherever possible, if there's anything that we can work through on our own before bringing in a third party, we do that first. And if we decide to bring in a third party, it's typically not going to be our family members first, because we want to keep that level of neutrality away from our families
Mhm.
as we sort through things.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a therapist. Like, I feel like if you're married, you should have a therapist on speed dial.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I
So,
agree.
So that's easier. Okay, let's. A lot of people seem to be spinning the block, going a little around, a little back to some old flames, old love. Um, the biggest is Nelly and Ashanti for sure, and it seems like they have had a great opportunity to rekindle their love. But for me personally, I'll say it's a hard no. Because I've never been successful at like forgiving and going back to an old relationship. But maybe it's because I haven't given it the 10 years that they gave it, or I think it was 10 years. And I think a lot happens in when you give it that time and space for someone to like grow, maybe learn from their misgivings, and then be able to kind of be this newer version of themselves. When I have forgiven and gone back, it not a long amount of time has passed, and I've typically had people telling me one thing and acting in a different way, which is another big lesson I've had to learn is taking people at their actions versus taking people at their word, which is definitely something I'm fallen culprit to many, many times. But yeah, would you spin the block? And if you do spin the block, not that you have no choice now.
Right, I ain't spinning no blocks. I am on my block. I am tucked away.
You're
in a
blocked for life.
cul-de-sac somewhere. But no, I agree with you. I am not a fan of spinning the block, running it back. Typically, and I think you sort of alluded to what I think about this, and that is there's something to be said about maturity, right? So in Ashanti and Nelly's case, it sounds like this is a classic case of maturity and growth and them, being immature, maybe too young, too much in their industry at the time that they got together. And now here they are, grown, a little bit growner, a little bit wiser, and maybe they are making better decisions. Maybe. That's what I assume is happening here. But that's not always the case. And I think an ex is an ex for a reason. I think people's relationships don't work for a reason. There's that saying that people say, if it's meant to be, it'll be. Okay, well, yes, if it's meant to be, it'll be. But also, let's not force it. If it's not meant to be, don't let it be. Don't let it shake you up. Don't crawl back to it. Let it go. Let it go. But what spinning the block reminds me of something my mom used to teach my sisters and I when we were growing up. Actually, it might have been my father, that I think about it. Either way, they always used to say, you will not build your home for some other woman to enjoy. And that has always stuck with me, and it can mean a variety of things. But I think the reason why I bring it up in this case is because I think about the time between, you said it was 10 years. So what are we in 2024? So let's say in 2014 they were together and it didn't work out. And between 2014 and 2024, let's say I don't know if this is true. Let's not even use Nelly and Ashanti. Let's say a couple were together. It didn't work out. They were married, they divorced. And then in the 10-year span, they've remarried, they've had kids, they've gained wealth, all these things, and then they divorce that person, and then just to go back to another. So for me, like mentally, I'm just like, whoa, who were the casualties in the last 10 years that maybe thought Nelly or Ashanti wanted to go back to each other? Maybe they didn't trust. Maybe they were caught in the crossfire. I just think about that, and I don't know if that's the right thing to think about. But whenever situations like this happen where there's a significant amount of time that has passed between the first time a couple is together and the next time they're together, I'm just like, who was caught in the crossfire? in between that time. And dang, because that person or those people, they probably didn't deserve that. They probably saw it coming, and now you have damage. Those folks are damaged, and those folks have to do their own round of therapy or whatever to heal. But all that to say, I'm just not a fan of
Mhm.
spinning the block. I just am not. Rarely would you
Yeah.
see success in that case.
Yeah, no, you bring up the point of who are the other casualties, because it would not shock me if they all had an inkling that something was
Mm-hmm.
off,
Mm-hmm.
but they over and let me even speak to myself. In the times that I have, I knew something was off.
Yeah.
I just wasn't honest with myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't listen to that inner voice that was telling me something's off here. I overrode it for the desire to be in relationship with someone. And that is a huge lesson in any relationship you want to be in, not to lose, for wanting to be married, for wanting to be in a relationship. You have to be comfortable with being by yourself. So
Yeah.
if not, you end up a casualty, like you alluded to, for sure.
Right.
Okay. So no to spinning the block, no spinners, no spinning here.
No spinning here.
This is one, like, I've actually had a friend like tell me this and say, yeah, I mean, she knows a couple, they live like next door to each other in separate houses, and then they
Mm.
just they either sleep in one house one night or sleep in the other house, or sometimes sleep in their separate homes. I've heard that before. I've heard, there are obviously people who maybe work in different cities.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that before. And then there are people who in the same home have their own separate bedroom. This I've heard in Nigeria, having your own separate bedroom.
Wow.
And not like maybe you have a room where you get dressed in. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
um I'm assuming as a woman you might have a room where you just get dressed in because it's your closet or whatever, separate from the bedroom. No, they literally have a different bedroom with a different bed from their partner. I don't know. Let me let you go on this one.
The separate house thing is a little extreme for me. Wow. I have never encountered or never heard of anybody in real life that has done it, but I've seen, like little, little stories here and there. I don't know these people, but I've seen it. And every time I'm just like, how? But what I have also heard, so I do know a couple of couples that are so busy with work that they spend the majority of their time apart. And so you'll see, like, during the week they're likely in two different cities, and then on the weekends is when they rendezvous and get together and all that stuff. And that has helped. That has given them some level of security in their marriage and their relationship. But for me, it's a false security, um, because for several reasons. First, um, no one is saying that you have to be up under each other all the time, but if you're spending 5 of the 7 days apart, then you're not going through the typical rounds of challenges and conversations and compromising that a typical couple would have to do, because you truly are living separate lives. If you have a work trip and you're spending, you know 20-25 days out of the year, out of the month away from your spouse, then do you really have the same kinds of level of relationship? I don't know that that's true. And then it brings me back to another point, which is long distance relationships. um, at some point you have to end the long distance, not the relationship part. Like, long distance relationship in and of itself can work as long as there's a plan to end the long distance. And so if similarly, if you have a couple who is apart from each other all the time, then you're essentially in a long distance relationship, and that's not realistic. It's not. It's a portion, it's a snippet of what a real relationship could look like or what it should be like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not real life.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope my message is getting across. It's not, I guess what I'm saying is it's not the true nitty gritty working out, learning how to be with somebody kind of relationship because you're living separately. And
Okay.
then when it comes to like, different rooms, different bedrooms, different beds, um, not as bad as living in two separate cities or two separate houses. But then the question becomes, what's the level of intimacy between these people? And I refuse to believe that any healthy relationship is devoid of intimacy. It's what makes relationships grow and thrive and, keep the interest. At some point, there has to be some level of touching, kissing, and of course, full on, sex and all of that. And so if you're sleeping in two different beds or two different rooms consistently, then what does that look like?
Mhm. Yeah. This is something that I've had like personal experience with being away from a partner for over a year. And what I learned from that experience is how um, distant we became because essentially we were living two separate lives, right? Um, and we fell into two separate identities.
Mm,
Um, there's so many unspoken things I think that happen that you're not even cognizant of when you are living with your partner. There, you develop like so many shorthands for
mhm,
communication,
mhm.
and intimacy is like seeing into someone else. Like you can make observations about them, but even with all the communication technology we have, it's just not the same as being able
It's
to
not the
reach out
same.
and touch somebody whenever
Right.
you want to, whenever you need to. And I think that women need a certain level of communication from their
Yeah.
male partners that is harder to get when like just even little calls in the middle of the day. Hey, how are you doing? But if you're totally different time zone, totally different place, just the communication back and forth becomes you start arguing about just finding the time to communicate
Mm-hmm.
is what I've learned. But I do think that like there should be mystique. Your partner doesn't need to know everything about you. Um, you should be bringing other experiences into the relationship
Yeah.
that you have separate from your partner for sure. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, I think we're aligned on this as well as
Mm-hmm.
far as like it's so like I love too much to want to not be in the same bedroom
Yeah. Right.
with my
Right.
partner.
And
That'd
then
just be
the
too
other part
weird.
of it is, what kind of straying are you breeding with the separation? So like,
Mm-hmm.
at some point there might be the wandering eye or the temptation to look at, pornography or, whatever to fill that void.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like it's a long-term solution that will work for a healthy marriage or a healthy relationship. So,
Mm-hmm.
for people who do it, I would be really curious to know, what the inner workings are like of those marriages, because I truly have a hard time understanding how a marriage can work with that level of separation.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, for some people, they say it works for them. They say
Mm-hmm.
that they need that level of separation
Mm-hmm.
to, they don't want to lose themselves in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. But I wonder for myself personally, but
Yeah.
I also think that there isn't, in certain things, there isn't a one size fits all, right?
Sure.
Um, to make a relationship work. But I find it, I would love to talk to someone who that works for and
Yeah.
see how it works for them for sure. Um, like I feel like we should kind of switch gears a little bit and chat about get some questions that we
Okay.
had earlier from the audience. I mean, there were definitely many other things that happened in relationships in 2023. It was so juicy, but we can't get to it all. But I think that gives a few of the key themes from last year. So we had a few questions that we kind of collected earlier. Um, and I think this is a really good one for you. How do you approach dual culture relationships where the couples are from different cultural backgrounds?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely my story. I am a Yoruba Nigerian woman. My husband is Black American. We both were born and raised in DC, but obviously my family is from Nigeria. My parents are from Nigeria. They emigrated to the States, and then had my sisters and I here. We've been to Nigeria a couple times in our childhood, but raised very much as a Nigerian living in America. Let me put it that
Mhm.
way. And so when it came to be honest, and I've shared this story before several times, when it came to preparing us for marriage, my parents were always of the mindset, growing up, they were always of the mindset that they wanted us to marry Nigerians. They wanted our cultures to be the same. It was down to like the specifics. They did not want us to just marry a Nigerian. It had to be a Yoruba person from this town, from this kind of family, et cetera, et cetera. And as we got older, it was just like, bro, well, if you're not going to arrange my marriage, then you're just going to have to get what you get, mom and dad. And luckily, I mean, I say that flippantly now, but it took some work. It took some touching my parents' hearts by God for things to transform in that way. And I say that to say, my husband has always been very accepting of all of my cultural nuances. He is very much um, a an easygoing guy when it comes to the food, the language, raising our children a certain way, even naming our children Yoruba first names. He's always been a fan of that, and so I've been really fortunate that it hasn't been a lot of tumultuous kind of learning or compromising. But I know that there are couples who don't have it as easy. They are from very different cultures and very different and strong cultures. So, for example, I know a lot of Jamaican and Nigerian combinations. That is a heavy hitter right there. Jamaican and Nigerian, very outspoken, very loud cultures. And what I found that has been successful for those couples is having those conversations early on about the differences in their cultures and how they want to approach their marriages. So, for example, I know a couple where the wife is the Jamaican and the husband is Nigerian, and so they talked about how they're going to raise their kids with certain customs. They talked about what they're going to name their children. They talked about where they're going to live. They talked about whether or not parents will be allowed in the home, like to live in the home. These are things that you need to have clear understanding and conversations about prior to signing up for any kind of marriage, because what you don't want is to cross that threshold of the wedding, be married, and then all of a sudden here are all these stipulations that you have to adhere to. That's not fair. That's not cool. And so my recommendation is always get as much as you can at the outset. During the courtship. Understand what the family dynamic is like. Understand what the relationship is like. Make some rules internally. Like we always said, Brandon and I always said, that we're not going to be victims of mother-in-law. Like we're not going to do that. And we both have very wonderful moms, so it's not like we ever had those issues.
Mhm.
But I've heard the horror stories of the mom-in-law wanting to run the household, wanting to dictate what happens with her son and stuff. Yeah, that's not something that I'm prepared to do. So I would say anybody who finds themselves in a dual culture marriage or dual culture relationship, um, get to understand what that culture brings, and have the conversation with your partner about what you will and won't allow or tolerate or accept in your relationship. And it goes both ways. It's not just, one sided.
Absolutely goes both ways. I think even if both people are of Nigerian background, but from
Mm-hmm.
different cultures within
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria, I think there are conversations that you have to have there because our
Absolutely.
culture, being someone of Nigerian heritage as well, our culture can be so like
Dominant.
exactly in each
Mm-hmm.
person's lives and with your extended family. It's
Yeah.
really important to understand how you're going to run your own household, even if your partner is from a different part in Africa. African culture is not a monolith.
Yeah.
There are so many wide variances. Like, for example, in my culture, I'm Yala. It is very normal. Like, if my siblings come in, they can go into the refrigerator and get anything they want to eat. In
Mm-hmm.
my culture, that is respect. That means
Mm-hmm.
like you're of this home,
Family.
you're of
Yeah.
this family. But I know it's such a taboo for some other
Yeah.
people. They don't
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
yeah, they have to ask and everything. And that would be so strange to me.
Yeah. Believe me, my little sister is we call her our first child because the girl will just come over here and eat like she's one of the children. I mean, truly will eat like she's one of the kids. We account for her in our taxes. I'm just kidding.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that was a good question. So we didn't get to this, but like one of the things that I think I find really interesting that's happening is this idea of loneliness. And we got a question on that. What advice would you have for someone who feels lonely in their relationship? Like if someone
Mm,
is in relationship but still feels lonely,
yeah.
how do they deal with that?
Oh man, that's tough. I mean, I can't imagine being married and single at the same time, or married and alone at the same time. I cannot imagine that. But I've heard certain stories, and my advice there is how do I say this? I was gonna say there's nothing you can do to fix the problem if your partner is unwilling to step up and fix it as well. What I'm really saying is if somebody's feeling lonely in their marriage, obviously it's not them. It's the other person. That means that there's something that's not happening. There's some kind of there's a lack of reciprocation when it comes to the true meaning of relationship, the true meaning of having that intimacy or having that bond or having that relationship. And so there obviously needs to be some therapy, some help, some mental health support that taps into the real core and the real reason as to why the partner is not present. Or it could be that the partner is too busy, and maybe neglecting the other person, and that's why they feel alone. And it always boils down to the same thing, which is there has to be a conversation between the two people. A lot of times we as human beings, we think that our partners understand what we're going through or know what we're going through when we haven't communicated it. And so if there's an instance where this might be happening and it has not been communicated to the other person, they may truly not know. It's easy to say, well, how could you not know? How could you not see? But when people are caught up in their own world and when people are caught up in their own, stuff, it it's easy to forget that there are other people in the room. It's easy to forget that there are other people that need to be taken care of. And so my advice would be to, first open up and have the communication, have that open dialogue to reveal the feelings of loneliness, and give the other person an opportunity to make amends. And if they cannot do that or have not done that, then I would bring in that third party in terms of bringing in a therapist to
Mhm.
see if there's some resolution that can be made.
My take is slightly different, or how I see it is I would first check in with myself and try and figure out. if it was me, why am I feeling lonely? Like, how can do I need to bring more activities into my life as an individual? Do I need to just have more people in my life? Because the way I'm seeing the question is like, before I reach out to my partner and involve them, and I think there is a part that you are going to have the conversation with your partner, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to check in with myself first to
Yeah.
see if there's any part of me that is just maybe overly wanting to get something from my partner that maybe I can give to myself.
Yeah.
That would be my first take. But, and then I would follow it up with my partner, checking in with
Mm-hmm.
them. Are they overworking? One of my biggest fears is being a single parent in a
Yeah.
marriage, or a single person in a marriage, right?
Yeah.
I know people who are single in marriage, and even though they have, like, it's not an issue of financial resources. All the financial resources are there, even for all the extras, but they still feel like a single parent
Yeah.
because the burden of taking care of the children, being the disciplinarian for the children, all the kids' needs, anything to do with the home comes to them and not to their partner. That there's
Mm-hmm.
no load sharing with their partner. So definitely in that case, it is a conversation with the partner as well. But I think in that particular case, there's some cultural element of
Mm.
thinking that a certain role is meant for the woman and a certain role is meant for the man, which I think is really hard to adhere to in that clean way living in America.
Yeah. I
I don't think it's
agree.
realistic.
Yeah. I agree
So,
with you that there needs to be some level of self assessment, some ownership on understanding why you if you feel lonely, why you feel lonely. But I would caution anybody who does that self assessment to not fill the voids
yeah.
with other people or with other things
Mm-hmm.
before having the conversation. So yes, take the moment, really understand what it is that you're looking for, self assess,
Mm-hmm.
but the solution should never be to fill the gap, fill the gap of the places where your spouse should fill with other people. That's
Mm-hmm.
very dangerous.
Yes, no, I totally
Mhm.
agree, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons that leads to infidelity in
Yeah,
marriages, when you look to someone to fulfill
exactly.
a need that your partner isn't fulfilling. So let me clarify. I'm talking about
Yeah,
like
yeah, I know. Yeah,
maybe you need other friends in your
right,
life or something like that.
right,
Platonic friends in your life.
right, right.
Let me be clear. Let me
That's
be
the
clear.
operative word, platonic. Right.
For sure. What are you looking forward to relationship wise in 2024? Like in the relationship space in general, is there anything?
You mean with my own marriage,
Oh,
or?
we can go there with your own marriage. Do you guys have anything you're looking forward to as a couple in 2024?
Oh yeah, certainly. Some things that we've been praying about for just internally for us that I won't necessarily share here,
Yeah.
but generally, I think we just really want to rock steady. We just really want to play on the same team. I think we have done a really good job over the years in doing that. We always use the analogy of playing on the same team. Playing. My husband's a football guy, a sports guy, so it's the analogy that I think he understands the most. But I think if we can continue to do that and just continue to demonstrate for our kids, what it means to work on ourselves individually, go to therapy. Like, we talk about therapy with our kids all the time. We're actually considering getting our kids therapists even from now, and just
Mm-hmm.
to help them understand how to speak through, talk through their emotions and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Mm-hmm.
think success for us would be being able to continue to play on the same team, raise good children, and then all the other things that we're looking for in terms of material things or additives are just cherries on top.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I second that in terms of like therapy isn't for when things are going wrong. So I
Yeah.
definitely know a few people who, like, when their kids are like, I don't know, 13 or younger, even
Hmm.
have their child talk to a therapist just
Yeah.
to, they may tell the therapist something they don't tell you. Who knows?
Hmm.
Yeah. But I've had such a great time. We could keep going talking about relationships and love. It's like my jam. But can you let the audience know where to find you? Anything you may have business wise that's coming up that you want to share with the
Yeah,
audience, with the public, and just where to find you on social media. And we will link it as well.
absolutely. I am at Folashade, Folashade. Don't forget the H in Sade. Butler, everywhere, all platforms. I will be honest, over the last couple of years, as I've had, 3 babies in a pandemic, I have not been doing a very noticeable job of sharing relationship content in the way that I have in the past. And so if people are following me on Instagram or if they see me on LinkedIn, they will see more of my family, family content, me sharing, raising, what it's like to raise a family of, 5 children, a family of 7. But it's all related. So you can find me on social, Folashade Butler. And then in terms of projects, I do, it's still premature. There's something on my heart that I want to launch this year. I don't know that it's big yet. I don't want to say, sound too exciting, but I'm still ruminating on it and seeing if this is in fact what God wants me to do. But hopefully that'll come in the next coming months and I'll be able to share that more widely.
Yeah, no, I pray that it comes to fruition, whatever it is, comes to fruition for you. Definitely a
Thank you.
fan rooting for you always.
Thank you so
So,
much.
any way I can be supportive, happy to be supportive. Thanks for tuning in to the No Ordinary Love podcast. I'm your host, Roslyn Ona, reminding you that extraordinary love is out there. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Until next time, embrace your own unique love story.